All right, so let's go back here. We're going to look at research unit retake. This is some concepts that people struggled with on the actual research unit test. So first off, we look at citations. And it says here, when internally citing a source without an author, you need to place quotation marks around the name of an article and italicize the title if it's the name of a book or magazine journal. So, for example, let's look at a couple of examples. This would be something that maybe is in your work cited page. And so if we didn't have an author and we were going to cite this internally, because it is an article, and you can see it's an article right here because it has quotes around it. When we actually cite it, it's going to keep the quotation marks around it. The names of articles, the names of poems would have quotes around them because they are smaller works. Think of it like sticky tack. As opposed to something that would be italicized, like the name of a book, the films of the 80s, a social history. So if that was a citation internally because it didn't have an author listed, you would put it either underline it or italicize it because you put a shelf under the names of books. But either way, you're not going to have the title alone. It's either going to have quotes around it because it's the name of an article, or it's going to be italicized or have a line under it because it's the name of a book or a magazine. All right. Internal citations. Let's talk about those internal citations. Students must independently complete homework by practicing self-regulatory behaviors such as planning, persisting at difficult assignments, organizing the environment, overcoming unwanted emotions, and reflecting on what they have learned, end quote, in order to successfully navigate the assignment and master the skill that is practiced. So here in this example, we have a direct quote here leading into my part of the sentence and my idea of the sentence. So where would the parentheses go? Where would the parenthetical go? Would it go here? Would it go here? Or would it go here at the end of the sentence? Well, we would have it right here. It's going to go right after this because this lets you know that this idea is mine, and Ramdas and Zimmerman, these two authors, hold this idea, which is why I put it here. And I put a comma here and before I go into the next idea. I could put a comma here as well, or I could put it here instead of there, but I think it looks better if you put it there. So that would be the internal citation. It goes right after the direct quote if the idea that follows is not the author of the quote, but the writer of the paper. Introductions. A couple of techniques we've talked about. First off, question. A question technique openly asks questions or a series of questions at the very top of the paper. Statistics uses specific numbers to open a discussion. 47% of Americans believe that angels exist. However, only 30% of Americans believe that evolution is proper science. And then I would use those statistics to then introduce my idea about whatever I was going to talk about. Or I could use a quote and use a direct quote from an outside source to introduce a topic, but remember that you need to transition from the quote to the idea that you are introducing. You can't just have a quote and then your idea. You need to transition between the two. And finally, misconception, and that plays on a belief that the reader might hold that might not be true. That example that I had about young drivers being bad drivers. Or it might be, kind of that misdirection play. You start getting to go this way because, that they typically believe this, and then you do the old switcheroo, and all of a sudden now you're going the opposite direction. And it gets them looking this way, and then when you switcheroo, it gets their attention again. So you're playing on something that they might already believe or something that they are anticipating you're going to say, and then you go the opposite direction. That would be a misconception. Database citation. Now let's look at this. A database is an electronic source. So check out the following. Look at this. Here it is. Now, there are a couple of things that you're going to notice, and show you. First off, it always begins with the author. The author first. If there is an author, you have that listed first. Then the name of the database article. And then usually the name of the journal that it came out of, and maybe volume, and might have some other information in here as well. Then it's going to have the name of the database. And it's an electronic source. So this should say web. It shouldn't say print because it's not a print source, because it's not a paper source. It's an electronic source, which is web, and then you follow it with the day that you actually looked it up on that database. So authors first, then the name of the article, then the name of the journal, then page number and the date that it was published and maybe the volume, the name of the database that was used, web, which tells us that it's electronic, and then the date you accessed it. All right? That's database. So those are things that you should know need to be in there, and hopefully you know kind of the order after doing this for a while. Importance of parallelism. We've talked about this. When you write a thesis statement, you want to summarize maybe those 3 reasons. You want them to have parallel structure. Tobacco should be outlawed because it endangers, a verb, everyone's health, pollutes, a verb, the environment, and drains, a verb, us, of valuable energy. Notice the parallel structure. A verb followed by its object, another verb followed by the object of the verb, and then another verb followed by an object. Same structure each time. Parallelism in sentences. We've looked at this example before. Betty has intelligence, honesty, and she is funny. No, because we have a noun, and then we have a clause. What you want to have is Betty has intelligence, honesty, and humor. Good writing requires that you plan outlines, write several drafts, and revisions. We have verb, we have verb, we have no verb there. Plan outlines, write several drafts, and revise your work. Verb, verb, and verb. Okay? Parallel structure. What makes a relevant source? Let's look at this. Opposing viewpoints, relevant source, probably. It's credible, it's peer-reviewed, it has information that comes from credible sources. The New York Times, well, it is the newspaper of record. It's one of the most reputable newspapers in America, probably. Twitter, probably not. You can put anything out there, you can put misinformation, you can create rumors. About Wikipedia? Well, you might, let's look at this. This is a Wikipedia picture about Mike Krzyzewski, the coach of the Duke Blue Devils. And if you look closely here, you see some accomplishments, such as his national championships in 91, 92, 2001, he cheated, and 2010. He was lucky. We also have 11 Final Fours and 4 titles, so he must have choked a lot to only have won 4 out of 11. And then we also have down here, he has 12 number 1 seeds because his team is a media darling. Now, if you went to Wikipedia and were doing something on Mike Krzyzewski and saw this information, which is probably still up there about 3 hours after I changed it, you would be getting misinformation. And you might assume that his team cheated in 2001, which they didn't really cheat. It was more that referees gave them the semifinal victory over Maryland. So Wikipedia can be changed. It can be altered. And because it is open to that, even for short bursts, it's not going to be reputable as a credible source because not everything on there can be confirmed at any point in time because it is so easily malleable, easily changeable. All right, rhetoric. Logos. One idea equals another. If you do this, then it will lead to this. That's the logical connection that we have. Pathos. Emotion. Plays on loaded words and imagery that stokes a person's emotions. We're going to see imagery, we're going to see loaded words, we're going to see repetition of those words and ideas, and then lastly, ethos, which is the credibility. So it focuses on the speaker, and we're going to see repetition of the pronoun I a lot. I believe this, I am this, I see this, I, because they're trying to create a sense of credibility to the reader. CEI. Claim. That's your topic sentence. Evidence. What does your research tell you that supports the topic sentence? CE and then I, interpretation. You have to explain how this evidence connects and supports the topic sentence. You need to connect the two or else it doesn't work. And a lot of people in their early drafts of the paper had C and E but didn't have the I. Political bias. Rush Limbaugh has political bias. We've talked about that. He's a great example of someone that leans solely to the Republican Party. Self-promoter. Authors of books or websites or various works that promote themselves for self-gratification. Toyota magazine rating its Toyota cars best in its class based on some specifics they've come up with for that. Financial. An individual or company creates a website to advertise a product or service, or they have a financial stake to make you believe something on their website. And if you believe this thing, then it's good for them and their bottom line. They have a financial stake at it, a direct financial stake. And then finally, sponsors, which is kind of connected to that. Is the information sponsored by someone that is looking to gain exposure or gain trust, or might themselves have some kind of secondary motive to sponsor a website, to sponsor a study, to sponsor a paper by someone. So you have to be aware of who it is that maybe does not runs the website, but sponsors it, gives it money, gives it their energy. Alrighty? And lastly, let's look at this paraphrase. Notice in this paraphrase all the words that I plan on changing, and then all the words I do change. A paraphrase is not just a few words. It's a majority of the words that are changed, and even the structure. If you look here, it says in research papers. It says research papers here at the end of the sentence. So I took the sentence and flip-flopped it. And that's something that you want to use in paraphrases. You want to look for that. It's going to be a change of a majority of the language, especially the nouns and adjectives and adverbs and verbs. But it's also going to be maybe taking some information that's at the end and moving it to the front, or stuff that's at the front and moving it to the end as a way of giving the same information in a different way. All right. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions.